Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the How to Be Rich podcast, rich in health, wealth, and everything else dealing with the self. My name is Dason Thomas, and today I have a very special guest, my man Carlton. How you doing today, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good, bro. You're someone I wanted to have on, bro, just because, bro, I got to say, like, you're wise. Like, you may be young, but you're an old soul. Like, I definitely feel like you have a lot of wisdom and just life experience that needs to be shared with the world. So thank you for coming on. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. How you feeling today?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good, you know. Life is... I did mushrooms last night, so I'm feeling like everything is... that's the thing that I like the most about mushrooms is it's kind of a reminder that everything is okay. And that was one of the things that I really kind of settled into last night is that I find myself constantly in judgment of myself, worrying that like I'm not doing what I need to be doing. But like yesterday I broke down like what exactly I'm doing in my life, the path that I'm on, and it's exactly where I want to be. And I won't say exactly where I want to be, but I'm on the path to getting where I want to be, and there's only one route to get there, and I'm on it. So I'm technically okay. Like everything is good.
Amen.
So I'm feeling that way right about now.
Amen. Yeah, I do believe. Like, people like don't believe in God and stuff, but I believe in God, and I believe like everything happens for a reason. And we've talked about this before, but like just even like things that seem like they could turn out for the worst, there's always a silver lining in which like it could be a positive thing. You know, it just depends on kind of how you look at it.
For sure.
So yeah, no, that's good though, man. Yeah, appreciate you coming on, bro. There's so much stuff I want to talk about with you. Like, I'm just trying to think where to start. So okay, let's give context. So tell me about like your childhood, like growing up. Like, would you feel like you had a positive childhood experience?
I had an equal amount of positive and negative. So if I look back on my life, like kind of how you said perspective, like I could sit here and tell you all the shit that I went wrong and like make you cry and you feel so bad for me and tell me that I've had the hardest life you ever heard of. And that was a really big part of my identity for a really long time. Like I was like the most hurt person that people had ever met. And they didn't know though until I told them like my story and shit. So it was a mind fuck. Like my mom passed away the day after Christmas when I was 9 years old. Like that shit, man. Like it's taken me, that was 26 years ago almost, right? And I'm just now realizing like the impact that has had on my life and my personality. Because I've spent my whole entire life almost living in this like willful denial that it fucked me up because I never really knew how to heal from it. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like that's just because like men aren't supposed to express their like emotions in kind of American culture? Or do you feel like it was more reasons than that?
Yeah, I feel like it was just nobody knew what to do with me or knew what to say to me. And I've always been a really rational person, like even as a kid. Like the first time I remember gaining like consciousness, like an awareness of the world around me, like I spent the next 5 days interrogating my mother about Santa Claus. I was maybe 7 years old, and I was just like, literally just asking the questions like, wait, so he uses magic to get down the chimney. Well, okay, but what about when we lived in an apartment and didn't have a chimney? So you're telling me that magic is real though. So where do I go to learn how to do magic? If it is real, like who has the information on how to do it? And like, I just grilled her like for days until she finally said, oh, all right.
It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real. Just don't tell your little sister.
Literally.
And so like when my mom died, like there was people, like my family already knew that I was like that. And so they were like, there was no like rationalizing my pain away. And so everybody just kind of was just trying to like flooded me with gifts and money, and nobody ever really talked to me about it, or my sister. So that's why I wouldn't say that it was like a man thing, because my little sister is the same shit. Like ain't nobody really talked to her about our mom passing, and she was younger than I was. So yeah, like my life started off like that in a lot of ways, but before my mom passed, like she was she was an amazing mother. Like she loved me and would do anything for me. Like she she coddled all of my little weird idiosyncrasies. If I didn't like I didn't like my food touching and shit on the same plate, and she would like oblige that. And like, I remember her friends being like, "What's wrong with you, little like why you play?
Why you separating the food?
Yeah, why you separating the food
cheese
for him?
and the broccoli?
Yeah." And like, I was like such a rational kid. I remember one of her friends was like, "You know, it all goes in the same place anyway after you eat it." And I was like, "Yeah, but when it gets mixed up, where it gets mixed up, I don't have taste buds." Like you could like. She tried to play me like, nigga, it all goes to the same place. It's like, yeah, but it's the route that gets there that's important.
Right. Yeah. That reminds me, like, back in childhood, like, people would be like, stand in line, you know, you're all going to the same place and shit. I'm like, bitch, I'm gonna be there first though. Like,
Yeah.
you feel me? No, that's deep though. Like, I feel like too, like, mothers are very important just for like a child's development. Like, for me, like, my mom has been like kind of like emotional support when my dad has kind of been more like strict. Like, I would never go to my dad and like talk about like
your feelings.
Right. No, like, right. Like, no, exactly though. And I feel like, yeah, but with mothers, like, that's something that, yeah, like, they help you keep in tune with that and kind of just even acknowledge that they exist. Like, oh, you have feelings too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But yeah, no. And I think, tell me about like growing up, would you say you were like a good like student?
I was in special classes and shit. Yeah. Like the advanced classes.
Yeah.
Like, I remember getting yelled at by my teachers because I didn't try hard enough. And there were like, I'll never forget, like, and I remember this because this bitch had the worst fucking breath. I don't know if you ever experienced that, like, when teachers just like with teachers, like a teacher with bad breath, and they like require you to sit, they get this fucking close to your face and tell you some shit, and you're like,
bruh, smell like pizza and shit.
The pizza that she stepped on 7 days ago and never washed her feet is really what it smells like. But, and she's just like, you have no idea how fortunate you are. You could just, because I feel like that was what encompassed my childhood, was like, I had adults, because I was such like a fucking honest, and like I kind of spoke from the hip, like even as a kid, like I would say wild ass shit to fat people, and like not disrespectfully, not even meaning to, but just like my understanding of how you got there is like you didn't take care of yourself. And so like I was that kid that walk up to somebody, be like, so why don't you love yourself? And they'd be like, why do you think I love myself? Like, because you're fat. Dang. And I was just like, like imagine a 6-year-old coming up to you and saying that, you know what I mean?
No, and you know, like, kids are like honest too, like.
And I was especially honest, like
honest.
I remember, like, there's this one time I was like with my aunt, and she smoked cigarettes and shit, and I was just like, we're in the car, and she's like smoking it out the car, and I was just like, and she had a daughter, my little cousin, and I was like, you know they're gonna get cancer when they get older because you smoking cigarettes around them.
Yeah,
like I was just a little wild ass kid, and so yeah,
I've seen that even to this day, bro. Like, you're just brutally honest with people, and I feel like too, like, some people need that, like they need that honesty in their lives, because that's lacking. I feel like today, like, most people care more about your feelings than like the truth,
especially in Minnesota.
Yeah, especially in Minnesota. This Minnesota nice
shit is wild. I saw a video. This woman was kind of explaining that she thinks it's like an effect of Stockholm syndrome from the winter.
Stockholm? Explain that. Elaborate on that.
So I'll elaborate from what I think she meant, but she didn't really go into extreme detail in the video, but I'm assuming that she means that, like, everybody, you learn to be passive aggressive and not acknowledge your feelings, because the biggest feeling you would have to acknowledge is how much it sucks to be here through the winter. Ooh. And so, like, the fact that you have to create this like false sense of reality and live in this fantasy world to feel it's okay to live in this shitty ass weather for so long.
Damn.
And it's funny, I was at Miriam's house yesterday, and she just kept saying shit, and I kept bringing it back up. She's like, oh my God, the sun's shining through the window, and it just feels so good. And I'm like, you sound like you have PTSD.
Damn.
And another time they were like, oh my God, you remember the time when you used to be able to put your feet in the grass? And I'm like, you sound like you have PTSD.
Yeah, Minnesota's not the place to be. Like,
long term, not.
Definitely not long term. Like, I think suns
vital. Yeah.
Literally, like we're meant to be in the sun and shit. And especially like melanated people. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
There's a point you have melanin, you know, to protect you from the sun. You know, like I've never been sunburned.
I did. I was once. Twice in the Caribbean.
When was that? Oh, in the Caribbean. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was literally so that happened twice when I. So
you were on the equator basically. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
And to kind of go back to what you're saying too about like I mentioned the thing about my mom passing, but then like the opposite and equal shit is like, yeah, I had really bad stuff happen to me, but then like when I was 14, I spent the whole entire summer living in Costa Rica on like a cultural exchange trip and shit.
How was that?
Crazy fun, like a lot, like just showed me a new way of living in life. Like literally lived in a village with people where us rich ass kids coming to the city was like the biggest boom to their economy that they could potentially have, like because
on some tourist shit, like
because the camp paid them to let us stay in their houses.
Wow.
And so, and I mean, this is a small town. I'm talking about like this town is maybe I could walk from one end to the other in like 15 minutes. Not even, and that's if I like zigzag through the streets and shit.
Not like a diagonal.
Yeah, if I could walk straight through the city, it would take me 5 minutes. Wow. Not even city, but the town, you know, and it was super small. But brothers, I've never seen people that happy before in my life. Like, motherfuckers didn't even like their walls didn't even touch the roof, but they're
happy as fuck.
Happy as shit.
I've always wondered about that. Like, why do you think that is? Because I mean, even in like Africa, like people like you see it's way more positive than it is here in America. Even though we have cars, we can drive to the grocery store, get food, air conditioned homes, like access to water, and you know you can wake up in the morning and eat. You know, like.
But see, I think that's what you're speaking to is the propaganda of like xenophobia in America, where the main way that America grew its economy was through lying to immigrants about the opportunities that they have here. And that's like, that starts first and foremost with what they teach us in school, not only about like our country, but like juxtaposed to other countries. And the reality is that all those things you name, like air conditioning, cars and shit, like you obviously don't need that to be happy because look at these folks.
Exactly.
Right. Like, and I think we've been lied to through capitalism about like the things that we need to be happy. And the things that they tell us that we need to be happy are really things that they need to maintain profits.
This like talking to you about this type of stuff like kind of hits home for me too, just because like I feel like for me though it's like I'm always like, okay, I agree with you, like deep down in my core I agree with you, but I feel like I can't go that way. And the reason I feel like I can't go that way is because I feel like I got to play the game to beat the game. And if I allow myself to experience that fully, like I won't be willing nor able to do what I do, which is, you know, work jobs, like make money and kind of just really invest time and energy into understanding the system and how to escape it.
So I think the biggest difference, and I'll apply it to something that was personal for you, because I seen a video about you used to wrestle. Yeah. And how you quit, right? Like, so the year that you were wrestling and you were deciding that you wanted to quit and you didn't want to be a part of your identity anymore, like you to some extent had to like get through with the season and like finish it out. But like through that time, are you going to be plotting new ways to be better within this system that you're no longer going to be using? Are you going to be dedicating your energy and time to like manifest some success within that system if you're planning on just like leaving eventually?
Ooh. No, that's a good.
You know what I mean?
And so, no, like, you wouldn't even think about that.
You would just get through it. You just do the bare minimum to get through and keep it pushing. And I feel like that is like the fallacy. So like going back to when you say like you gotta like learn how to how'd you put it when you said like
play the game to
beat the game, right? Now apply that to like a sport you don't want to play.
Just play a different game. That's what you're saying. Like
yeah. I mean, like play the game as long as you need to, but like to beat the game requires a level of like involvement that if you don't want to be a part of, you're sitting on the fence. You got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, essentially, right? Yeah. And that's what the loop that I found myself in over the years.
You know what's interesting? I want to get back to that in a second. Like what's interesting too is like I found like when I achieve things, I no longer care that I achieved them. And I feel like, okay, I'm gonna put this in an example. So like, for example, I feel like when I was a freshman in high school, I wrote a letter to my senior self, and I opened it senior year and I just looked at it like yesterday. And in my senior letter to my freshman letter to myself, I said a bunch of stuff, yada yada yada, like keep working hard, like, and then at the end I said, P.S. like you better have 1,000 followers on Instagram by now, right? Because I wanted to be popular super bad. And what's interesting now, and it's not even like real popularity, it's like that superficial, like, 1,000 followers on social media. But what's interesting now is like, now that I have way past that, it's like I don't give a fuck about how many followers I have. And I feel like the same thing's gonna happen with like money. Like once I have like a lot of money, then it's like, but now you don't give a fuck, if that makes sense. Like, so it's kind of a weird like dichotomy where it's like once you get something, you no longer want it. Maybe it's like the chase, and I don't know what it is,
because you never wanted
really
it.
Is that really what it is though, or is it more like I just want things that are difficult to have, and people just want things that are difficult to have, and things that other people don't have, right?
I mean, think about if you're super thirsty and shit, and you drank a glass of water. After you're finally nourished, would you be like, I don't ever want water again? I'm cool. Water's okay. I don't really give a fuck. Or would you be like, damn, yeah, I maybe don't need any more water right now, but fuck, I love the shit out of the water. I can't wait to be thirsty and have another fucking sip.
Right.
It's like when things that you really want and need, you don't ever get tired of it. Like, think about your favorite things to eat.
Damn.
Your favorite things to eat.
Nah,
right?
bro, I've been fucking up Master Noodle like 3 days.
That shit is different.
Bro, that beef fried rice, fire. Yeah. No, but you're right though. No. So you're saying like the things that you need, you'll never get tired of, and the things that you never really actually wanted, you can get tired of.
Yeah.
Valid.
I mean, think about bro, apply that to a girl that you're dating.
Yeah.
If you hit once and never want to see her again, did you really like her?
Right. No, posting that clarity is real.
But if you hit and you go on a date and you still want to continue to see her, that means you
really like her. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
It's the same shit. Like, it's the same thing. It's the
but
chase,
then,
right?
But then it's like once you hit those, like you might want to like hit again.
Yeah, because you like her.
That's a valid point. No, that's a valid point.
But if you like, we're going back to the thing you said, like the followers, like you don't really like having followers.
Like the idea of having.
You like the idea of accomplishing something. But I think that's the difference between accomplishing something just for the accomplishment, and like accomplishing something that's like fulfilling for you. There's like that had a deeper purpose to it. And I think that's the first thing that triggered the first thought that was triggered when you were saying that stuff is like, it sounds like to me like you haven't fully found your passion yet. And that's okay. Like,
I feel like I know deep down what my passion is,
or at least you're not doing it.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
though,
that's
but it's like I feel like it's kind of like you gotta get money to do your passion. Like it takes.
Well, what is your passion?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm very interested in like the sciences, like the arts. Like I got my books here right now. Like I've been trying to get into it. Like even, I got like I'm gonna show it on the screen. Atom. The spectrum of light, and really just trying to understand how the universe works. Because I think this shit's interesting as fuck. Like manifestation, like dreams. Like I've been keeping a journal and documenting all the dreams that I do remember and trying to see if there's any like correlation between them and stuff like that. But it's like just things like that, which have nothing to do with money. It's like if I were to invest all my time and energy into learning about those things, I feel like then I would be.
What do you hoping the money will change for you?
Give me the resources to be able to do that as much as I want to do it, without ever having to fear for like not being able to eat myself, or my dog not being able to eat, or having a place to stay and shit like that. Like that's my biggest fear, to be honest with you. So I have this thing that I really love and I really want to do, but it's like the fear of like not being able to subsist is like keeping me like from doing what I love, if that makes sense.
I totally get that. And to give you some context and perspective, like outside of the pup, bro, like I think you feel way more fulfilled like buying a van and just like reading your books and traveling, and you don't like you're at that, like if your quest is just knowledge, bro, working where we're at, bro, ain't gonna, because that's just draining the shit out you too. Like how much energy do you really have to come home and read those books at the end of the day?
Bro, none.
Exactly.
None.
And if you think about like what's that job providing you, like the shelter, food, right? You could like, especially because for you and your dog's needs is like, for me, we're having to feed 5 people. Like I kind of have to be in the system, like, right? Like there was a point in time where I was able to maneuver and not have to have a job and be able to get all this shit done, but that's not my situation anymore right now. And maybe that's not even, maybe I'm saying that and it's not even fully true. Maybe there is a way for me to get back to that. But I also know that it's not going to be, I can't do that while I'm here. And that's one of the things that I've been kind of like just pulling back in my mind about, and I'm not giving this motherfucking space like all of my time and energy like that anymore. Because like in the same way where you got your hobbies that you like to do, like I got the shit that I like to do at my crib, but none of it's getting done because by the time I get home, I'm drained, bro. Yeah. Mentally, physically, and then I got 3 kids who want to tell me every single point, that every single thing that happened for them that day, and I gotta listen and be attentive and aware and shit. So, that's something I kind of bugged you about a lot. It's like that's one of the biggest regrets I think I had was like being too stationary when I was young. Especially like if you want to read and learn and gain knowledge, there's so many people out there that you could learn and gain from. If it wasn't like if I didn't have kids, I'd probably just be living on somebody's farm somewhere, like doing like helping them feed the chickens every morning, and that's like my room and board, and then I spend the rest of the day just out in the field. Like there's a girl I follow on Instagram that I met a while ago, and we were talking about all this shit, and she was a nurse. She quit being a nurse, bro, bought the van, and I just watch her on Instagram now. She has just manifested like living in Hawaii on some dope ass property with a natural hot spring and free coconuts and free pineapples and all, and she ain't got to pay for none of this shit. And then she's meeting people along the way that she's picking up, and they're driving out in the van with her to these different places, and like she's just good.
Yeah, nah, that's wild.
You know, and so like hearing if that's really what you're about, dog, like don't get caught up in capitalism too much.
Yeah, and I think too like success does take many forms, but I feel like our culture has kind of narrowed it to a certain
financial success,
right? And even in like material things, like having like nice cars and like a big house and like, you know, just like shit that doesn't really matter because you got a big ass house and you can't stay in all those rooms yourself. You can only be in one place at one time. So it's really like, what's the point? But anyways,
but like that's a real good point. Like I lived in a town where where me and my family were the only black family, and my aunt had a full court basketball court in the backyard, jacuzzi, pool, a motherfucking bridge with a full size playground in the back and shit. Like a fucking $2.5 million home in a rich ass in the same neighborhood that Rev Run's house was in and shit. And bro, like I'm not even gonna dog my aunt, but she ain't happy, bro. And she used all this money to have all these people coming over the house all the time and couldn't. It don't amount to shit now.
Yeah, that's real. Honestly, I feel like some of the richest. Now that you brought up that point, I'm thinking about like a lot of the rich people I know. They're not actually happy.
No.
Like
they're pretending.
Not nearly as happy as people in different places and different cultures, and maybe they're more happy than people who are impoverished in America, right? Like maybe their struggles aren't, I don't know, like
I think you could speak to I mean, so does your mom's family are they poor? Would you consider them poor?
I mean, like farmers in Iowa, like on land that they don't own.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're basically sharecropping and shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, so they didn't, she grew up on a farm with like three siblings. So.
And your dad?
And my dad has 7 siblings, grew up in
the hood,
yeah.
So if you were to go to your dad's families, is there gonna be more laughter? If you went to like a fucking family function with your mom, or you went to a family function with your dad, is there gonna be more joy and laughter with your dad or with your mom's family?
Probably with my dad, yeah, just because the family barbecues are
and they're both poor though, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so I think that's the other thing too, is that it's perspective, bro. Like it goes back to the silver lining shit where it's just like realizing that like if you're not homeless, you have enough.
Facts.
And being okay with that. And I feel like sadly,
even if you are homeless though. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I still feel like even sadly, like black people generally in this country like put a cap on themselves, and like as long as they have like the bare minimum. And I used to better way to put this, I used to think this was like a fucking defect because Sharky, the mother of my kids, she would always be like, why can't you just be happy? We have a house that we rent that's being paid for. We got a car. Neither one of us has to work that hard. Like, and at that time in my life, I'm like, yeah, but I need to get more money. I need to stack. Things could be better. I don't own this house. The car's not that nice, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I was mad at her, like, why are you trying to stunt my dreams? Like, why are you trying to tell me that we have enough? Nah, it ain't enough. It ain't enough. And we should have listened to her. because we were good, and even though now we're still good, and that's just like the biggest realization, bro.
It's all good.
It always has to be, and by the time it's not good, you ain't gonna be here to be able to complain about it.
Damn.
So why waste time complaining? Like,
Facts. No, that's deep. That's deep. I think, yeah, I'm just processing that for a second. Like another point too about things not being good though. Like, I'm not confident in even, like, I've always wanted children. Like, really wanted some children. Like, you know. But I feel like too with the direction that maybe not the world, but the United States is going in. Like, I wouldn't want to have children here, if that makes sense. Because I mean, the Ohio train spill thing where they train spilled and leaked plastic chemicals and shit into the atmosphere, and then they try to burn it to cover it up, and then it released a toxic cloud killing birds and tens of thousands of fish and shit. Like, that shit's crazy to me. Like, that people can just do that shit and get away with it. And I wanted to talk to you about this too. Like, how is Flint, like, being, like, you were in Flint mid water, like during the water crisis, before that shouldn't even happen, but you were, bro, this is another thing about you, bro. This is what makes you raw. Your precognition is crazy. You were already purifying all your water and shit. Everybody thought you were crazy for having your whole water filtration set up. Boom, once there's lead in the water, people dying and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, Carlton, like, type shit, right? So what, man, there's so many points to touch on there, but just tell me like a bit about that and why you were kind of on that before it even occurred.
So, like, it's funny. I saw a long time ago, before I ever started growing weed, I saw a post that somebody wrote about it, about how, like, it changed their life and taught them so many lessons outside of weed. Like, for them, it taught them to be disciplined. It was the first time in their life that they ever cared about something, so they would, like, create a schedule and were regimented. You know, they were intentional about their actions, and it taught them how to care for something that they never had thought about caring for another living thing before. And there was I remember they mentioned all of these, like, extracurricular benefits to growing that had nothing to do with just smoking good weed all the time. And that has been especially true for me. The majority of my understanding of nutrition for human beings actually started with me studying plant nutrition, and then noticing the overlap and the parallels between the two. And it really makes sense because, like, minerals are minerals, and nutrients are nutrients. That's like that's easily transferable across plant and animal kingdoms.
Any life, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense that we evolved to need the minerals that the plants that we eat have. So
no, that makes sense.
Right? Like, if a plant like has this much calcium, this much magnesium, this much phosphorus, this much fucking nitrogen and all this shit, right?
Right.
Like, that those are going to be things that we have evolved to use as well, because, like, that's our main food source. We didn't have, like, all vitamins shit like that's based off of fucking plant medicine, plant foods.
Right.
And so with the water crisis, though, I was, like, reading a book, and this was 2010, 2009. I was reading a book about organic growing, and this is before, like, kombucha and probiotics were super big.
Shit, yeah.
But, like, in my circle, I had heard about probiotics at the time. And in the book, it was talking about plant probiotics and how using chlorine water will kill the probiotics in the soil. That's now with the information that we have, that's somewhat debated, but it's irrelevant because that idea and that notion or that hypothesis spurred the thought in my brain, because I was reading about the same strains that you use for probiotic to plants are literally, no, it's not 100% like every strain that you use, but there's about 10 strains I could think of bacteria that could be used on plants and have a probiotic benefit, and those same 10 strains are what you find in yogurt. The lactobacillus bacteria. So when I realized that, oh my God, this is the same bacteria that they say is good for us, and if this dude's saying that the chlorine kills bacteria, right? And my stomach's supposed to be colonized with bacteria, why am I drinking chlorinated water?
Boom.
And so at first it started off with me not wanting to feed my plants chlorinated water because I wanted to grow the best plants possible, right? And then in that I learned how I could grow myself to be the best human possible in a sense, right? And water myself properly. Yeah, so when I realized the connection between the soil, so, like, I feel like the soil and the roots is the plant's stomach. like the roots and the source, so to speak, of the plant's stomach, and so I just didn't want to put it under my stomach. I just applied the logic in the same way.
Honestly, it's just like the way you put it so plainly. We evolved from plants, so we need the nutrition that the plants.
Well, actually, I would say we co-evolved with plants, like, you know what I mean, like
with them, right?
And we've helped.
You look at like even something simple as like biodiversity. Like you look at like white rice, and like our rice is not supposed to be white. And I remember seeing like a quote. It was like, "If it's white, it ain't right." And I mean that, you know. But like with white rice, with like flowers and things, it's like our wheat's supposed to be like brown and different colors and grains. And you look at like, I don't know, like corn, for instance, like Mexican corn versus like our corn. It's like there's so many different, like the way they're bred, like they're breeding, like wild corn's breeding with wild corn, and you're getting all the nutrients in it. But like when we kind of strip away all that, it's like we're really lacking ourselves from so many minerals and things that we need now. And what people don't know too is like in the train spill, that's chlorine. Like in the chlorine was in the train. They spilled it and they burned it, and so it created like some chlorine that binds to like, it's like hydrogen. Man, I was doing research on this. I can't recite it verse for verse, but the chlorine water binds to the molecules in the atmosphere. So now it's acid rain, and people are drinking acid rain, and they're saying it's okay, and yada yada yada. And they changed the like regulation on it too, how much parts per whatever.
Allowed. Yeah, they always do
is
that.
Allowed and shit. And so it's like, man, like, are they really just trying to keep people sick? And it's like, if they are, why are they trying to keep us sick? Which you can assume why, but
I see. Dude, I used to go down those fucking rabbit holes with that, and I really don't think it's that deep anymore. I really don't think people care about you doing good or doing bad. They just care about getting the money. And if you do good or do bad in the course of that, like, they don't give a fuck whether way each way it goes. Like, they're not going to spend extra money to make sure that you're good. But I also don't think motherfuckers are going to spend extra money to make sure that you fucked up.
Ooh.
Right? I just think that, like, is whatever's going to happen in the course of them making as much money as possible is what's going to be, and they don't give a fuck.
Deep.
Like, that's just all it is. Like, when you think at the Ohio train spill, I don't know if you remember that Congress blocked the fucking railroads fucking workers from striking.
Yeah. Yep.
So according to them, they were trying to say it was about money and time off, but the railroad workers were saying it was about fucking poor working conditions and fucked up trains and shit that they weren't repairing, that they knew were gonna go bad. And so it's like, so now is that motivation? Oh, because they want a train to be fucking to capsize and they lose all that fucking money. Like, no, they don't really want that, but they're stupid. They're stupid, and they don't believe that things are ever gonna be as bad as they can be. And then if things are as bad as they can be, they got enough money to fix it anyway.
I think you make a valid point. I would refute that though, because with this particular instance, because I don't know if I told you this, but there was a movie called White Noise. It's about a train spilling, and it burned up, and then these I'm gonna pop it on the screen right now. Boom, and these plumes of smoke come up and basically pollute the environment, and everyone has to evacuate and shit. And what's crazy is the movie White Noise was filmed in 2022, and it was filmed in Ohio. And that was the topic of conversation. And then it just so happens that this train spills in 2023 in Ohio, the same place. So it's like, that would be a crazy coincidence for me. Like, if that was a coincidence, which it is possible. But it makes me think that, man, they must be doing some shit. And that's like the subliminal messaging. Like, I've seen that in like cartoons with The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. And I've heard, and they've done that across a spectrum of different events with like UFOs and like even just like presidents and shit. I've seen stuff with that, and it seems too damn coincidental to be just like, oh, this just happened. And it's like, it seems like some motherfuckers are plotting this shit out, but who knows?
I feel like if they are, it's just to fuck with your head.
Like it's all some big game.
Yeah, no, it's just to keep you distracted and keep you going down. Because if you, how are you gonna grow if you keep going down rabbit holes? That's a dark space. Like I said, I think that's something like I've spent years going down rabbit holes of trying to understand. And the point I'm at now with it is like, and this is a perfect example, even with like the Jews running everything, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so like when we think about trying to understand something, we have to have a purpose for understanding, right? And so when it comes to a lot of that stuff, what I end up coming back to now is like, okay, but what the fuck is the purpose of that understanding? right?
Ooh.
There is some fucking hypothetically. Let's say that the Jews are running everything.
Run BlackRock. There's the CEO.
Yeah. So, but then now,
is a Jewish person.
What do we do with that information?
Right.
How is that information going to better things? How is that information going to be used? And I feel like that is what most people of Jewish faith, it's hard for them to acknowledge the truth in those statements, even if there is truth, because what's that truth going to be used for? Another fucking Holocaust? What are we trying to gather up information about all these Jewish people in power to say that all Jews are bad and we need to fucking do something about it? Because what's the purpose of coming to these conclusions?
Right.
What are we hoping that we're gonna do with the information now? Are we gonna say like, okay, now we need to really be watching the Jews now. We need to make special rules for the Jews because they're in control. So now we need to make it so that Jewish people can't be CEOs of a company. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's where it gets dangerous.
It would be recycling.
That's where it just gets. That's where I feel like trying to have an understanding of something from that lens could be fucking problematic, because, like I said, you might not have the intention to use that information in an anti-Semitic way. That might not be your intention at all, but I feel like the majority of people, I should say that might not be your conscious intention. But like I said, like, what's the next step? What's the next step? Let's just say that we were able to prove that there's this conspiracy.
What's next?
What do we do?
Point?
Yeah, what are we gonna do now?
That's a very valid point. Like, you're putting it in a 3D lens, like just kind of taking a step back and looking at it from a bird's eye view, and I think that's valid.
And then, like, you brought up, like, the other day, like, about that same concept of me, like, confronting Miriam about it, and the point I wanted to continue making was just like, confront her on what? Like, does she benefit? Do you think she benefits from there being a CEO, that's the Jewish CEO in BlackRock? Right. You think she personally benefits from that?
Like, because I think it's true. Like I won't even hold you. Like, I think Jewish people do run shit. Like,
Jewish people. See, no.
I think the majority of people who are in power are Jewish. Why that is, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe just because of the culture, and Jewish people have, like, money and finance incorporated into their religion. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because, I don't know, some voodoo Illuminati shit. Like, I don't know why it is, right? But I think, like, the evidence is there, but I do get what you're saying, though. Like,
okay, so it's true. Then what? Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with it? Like, and I think too, like, I kind of take of it like, okay, what can you do with it? And I think the only thing to do is, like, study the people groups and, how you can elevate yourself to, be in that position if you want to be in that position. But I mean, that's a whole nother thing about if you want to elevate, like, for instance, like, I was really invested into, like, the history on why, like, black people have, what is it, like, 10 times less the median wealth than, like, white people or some shit. Like, it's drastically different. Like, the racial wealth gap is a huge disparity, and I was very invested into kind of figuring out why. But I feel like once you know why, it's like first of all, there's so many reasons why. Like, I'm not even gonna start going down the rabbit hole, because what's the point? It's like, once you know why, then what? And I feel like too, is getting money even going to make anyone happy? Like, once, like, money doesn't even create that, right? Mm-mm. So, I mean, and the solution could be like, okay, everyone packs up and go to Africa. Nope, too late. You stay here and try and become wealthy for what? And then, yeah, it's really like, but when you think about it like that, though, it's kind of sad. Sad as fuck. But
yeah, I don't think that there's hope for niggas here. Like, that's just, like, that'll... I think it has way more to do with white people's inability to see themselves in the way that they see us.
Elaborate.
You know the type of cognitive dissonance it takes to be able to be a white person living in America, but then also say you land back to natives and Black Lives Matter. It's delusional. It's delusional to think that you illegally occupying a country in any way, shape, or form, even in protest, is actually, like, benefiting the people who, like, it used to belong to.
Yeah.
Every time a white woman has a child, in America, they're participating in white supremacy. How is it not, though? Because for every white child that's born, they're taking up space that should belong to a native person.
True.
And the difference between black people and white people, I would say, is that white people came here by choice.
Ooh.
and they have the and as you described, their community has a higher income and medium, and they have the financial means to go back to where the fuck they came from, whereas we don't.
Yeah.
So I think that to think that there's the group of people who are in control, who shouldn't even be here to begin with, are going to somehow gain consciousness to the point where they like treat us with respect. Like, look what they do to the people who are supposed to be here. We ain't supposed to be here either. So they definitely don't give a fuck about them. They sure as fuck don't give a fuck about us.
Right.
Like, and
yeah,
motherfuckers need to wake the fuck up to that point. Like, you get yours and go. Get yours and go.
You think that's the solution to leave? Because I mean, there's two kind of approaches to it. Like, there's like the Marcus Garvey approach, which is like Pan-Africanism, like leave, go back to Africa, yada yada yada. Then there's like Malcolm X approach, where it's like carve out your own piece of the United States. And then there's kind of like,
so they can blow it up,
right? Like Black Wall Street, which that's a whole nother.
So they can blow it up and take it back. Nah, I'm good.
That's a whole nother thing. Then there's like MLK approach, which is like integrate. You know, like black people, they can reproduce themselves in any population, pretty much. Like, do you think that's a viable outcome to like?
So integration is bullshit. Like, they're like, the black community suffered once they integrated school systems, and the reason why they did that was because, you know how many black teachers there used to be before integration? How many do we got now? When's the last time you had a black teacher?
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
But when they were black and white schools, nigga, all your teachers would have been black.
Damn.
We had our own infrastructure. We had our own school systems. The Black Panthers and shit was setting up. The Black Panthers created what we know as free lunch for schools. And the federal government fucked their shit up and then took the idea and ran with it. Right, like the Black Panther were people that they were supplying free lunches to schools to color schools back in the day.
Damn.
We had integration like fucked us up. It's not. We don't need to integrate, bro. Like, why we want to integrate with it? Like, it would be one thing if people actually wanted to integrate with us, right? Like, I mean, that's the other part of it too. Like,
yeah, that's why Malcolm X said it's like trying to integrate into a burning house. Like, you're just gonna die.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say this to like knock anybody else who's taking that route. I'm just saying, for me, where I think my time is best spent, it's not spinning my wheels in the mud in America. Like, because the most I could hope for is like personal success, right? Like, the most I could hope for is to get my 40 acres and a mule. But the second that two niggas get together and get 80 acres and 2 mules, that garners some unnecessary attention. You get 3 niggas with 120 acres and 3 mules. You see, so like,
get Black Wall Street and they burn that shit down.
Yes, and eventually, yeah. So
yeah,
I don't want to live. I don't want to have to do that. Like, I don't want my only chance and my family's only chance for like success and freedom to be us bunkered down on 40 acres of land, like some goddamn militaristic group that don't let nobody in and nobody in. Like, because bro, I just don't want to deal with it. I don't. Like I said, I think there's a cognitive dissonance that white people in America possess in terms of still living here and thinking shit's sweet. A perfect example of that, right, was I was talking to a girl and I was talking about buying land in Puerto Rico. And I'm Puerto Rican, so like there's that. And she straight up said to me, I just feel like weird buying land from Puerto Rico when it's not my home. And then instantly jumped in to be like, but there's something about the Pacific Northwest that just calls me. I really want to buy a house in Oregon. And I had to like put it into perspective for her, like, you're not from North America any more than you're from Puerto Rico, the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. Like, so why it's what the fuck is the word? It's you're virtue signaling by acting like you actually give a fuck about taking land from indigenous people. Because you're in America. Because you're in America and you have no problem going to Oregon and buying some fucking land in Oregon that was originally belonged to native people.
Yeah.
And so there's a cognitive dissonance. These people are fucking crazy and you got to be to stay here like this. And it's no disrespect to anybody that is white. It's just wake the fuck up and realize the truth. And I don't mean that tomorrow you got to hop on a flight and leave. But it starts with you being aware that this ain't yours and it never will be yours. And you need to stop having kids who are going to assume that it's theirs too. If you actually give a fuck. Or, you could just continue living your life that makes you feel good.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the thing about you, Carlton, too. It's like you really tell it how it is. But most people aren't really hearing that. You feel me? Like, no one's going to hear that shit. Like, I won't say no one. I won't manifest that. But, like, it's just, that's the truth, though. And when you put it like that, it's like I feel like that's too radical. I feel like people are gonna be like, no, well, I can't do that because my ancestors were here and my great grandfather was here, and maybe you
Where'd
go
they
back
do
to
that- where'd they
300
do?
years, when they were plantation owners and some slaves, and maybe they're proud of that history or whatever. And oh man, we were talking about some shit about the Confederates, like the North versus the South, and why that really went down. And I forgot exactly how you broke this shit down, but you broke this shit down like science. Like you're saying it wasn't because of slaves, it was because of states. Because the United States
they had fucking slave factories in the North, dog.
Right.
Maybe they paid the people, but they paid the people enough to live in a fucking apartment with 700 other immigrants and with barely enough money to fucking feed themselves. And once again, as we know now, capitalism is no different than fucking slavery, especially in the context where you got a whole group of people who were making the fucking excess of goods, and then there's one or a few group of people who aren't even making those goods who get to decide what to do with the excess. In the same thing with all those. I mean, I'm sure in school you learned about the Triangle Factory in New York, the Triangle Fire Factory. I know they taught it to me when I was at school. It's like a famous fucking factory in New York that burned down, and all these people died because these rich fucks didn't implement.
They locked the doors and shit.
I don't know if they locked the doors. I can't remember if that was it, but there were no safety measures in place in case of a fire, and they knew this, and somebody had said hey, this is a potential, and they didn't care because it was about profits. That's the same shit that slave owners do, though.
Right.
Those are the same people. They're not different people. So this idea that the North and the business owners and the politicians in the North had this altruistic fucking moral high ground over the people in the South is just bullshit. As if they gave a fuck about the common man any more than the slave owner gave a fuck about his slave.
100%.
That's just not that's not reality. And when you look at it, one of the biggest disadvantages that we have in this country to enacting real change, and the other reason why I want to leave, is because that we're too fucking big of a country. We are the largest country in terms of it's outside of of Russia and China. And think about trying to act and look at those two countries and see how much the people are subjugated by their fucking federal government, and how they have no real individual sovereignty amongst the different provinces or the different countries underneath the Russian banner. They can't enact change. They can't come together as a country. And then, because think about how much it would take. And the same way with America. From California to New York, there's fucking 50 fucking states, right?
Right.
In that same amount of fucking space, if you were to go to Europe, it would span from Spain to Moscow.
Literally.
And that's fucking, but in between that space, there's 30, 40 fucking countries.
Right.
And each one of these places get to some extent. Now, granted, the European Union is a conglomeration of that, but that is not and I think that in some weird way, our government's supposed to reflect that in terms of how we have state governments and federal governments. But in the EU, countries have the ability to opt out and not fuck with it. We can't just be nah, we're good with the federal government. A state can't just be you know what, we're gonna do our own thing from now.
Right.
And you know why we can't do that? Because of the Civil fucking War. It was the shit that they passed at that time that made it illegal for states to secede from the Union. That was what it was about. They didn't want states to secede from the Union.
Boom.
And now, so you look at a country like California, that a state like California. See, and that's the only thing.
Or
That's exactly. And that's the only hope I would have is being in a state that maybe we can make a big enough fuss and gain some independence. But I don't I'd rather be in another country fighting the imperialists trying to come into a country and make it like America, than be in the imperialist country trying to change
from
it.
the inside. Damn. So that's what you mean kind of by switching games. It's we're trying to play chess here and beat God. It's trying to change it is trying to beat God in chess. It's that shit's damn near impossible. But you're saying just switch the game.
They manipulated participation in this country to the extent that even if you participate against the general benefit of the country, they could still manipulate that to their benefit. So an example of that, right, is all the people that came to protest in the city, right? What did that give them the right to do to us? Lock us the fuck down. The city got a bunch of fucking money for the extra police, the National Guard. All these folks got fucking paid. Every single motherfucking person that came to the city to protest, every single dollar they spent in that city while they're protesting, defunding the police and not giving money to the police, every single dollar they spent was taxed, which then a percentage of that goes to the police. People are beyond even seeing how their own actions benefit the system, even when they're trying to go against the system. You think Target fucking missed a fucking lick when they burned that bitch down?
Definitely not.
You know they got cashed out for every single piece of merchandise in there as if they sold it.
Wow.
Every single piece of merchandise in that whole entire fucking building, Target got a check from their insurance company for. It's so they, by burning that shit down, they did not hurt Target at all.
Definitely not.
They
They only hurt themselves, to be honest, because
they hurt that community. The people who weren't even from here came here and fucked over that
fucked
community
it up.
because then they don't have a fucking supermarket to go to no more.
Yeah.
They
And
look like a war zone every time they drive past that bitch.
Yeah, and we're talking about it like it's not our community. Like, they fucked up our community. And, like, even burning down, like, certain businesses and shit. Like, they burned down, like, the Wendy's. Now you ain't got no food. Like, it's really, like... But I don't think that was people here. It was outsiders. And maybe, you know, there's a whole rabbit hole you can get into that shit. Like, who was coming to really fuck shit up. And I saw, like, TikTok videos while it was happening. Like, on the night that it was happening, like, a dude took a video of a dude. He was, like...
In a gas mask at the auto zone. And his wife came out and said he's a cop.
Boom.
You know, that's real shit.
Yup.
That's real shit. But I hold the government accountable to some extent. But then at the end of the day, like, that was one man, and then everybody else, like a hive mind, fucking picked it up and ran with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people, like you said, I don't think are from Minneapolis. A lot of them had the luxury of going back to the suburbs where the city wasn't locked down, and they didn't have fucking the National Guard rolling through the streets. Like, the other thing that people don't want to talk about is, like, when that shit was all happening, and I'm living on the fucking north side, and it's a lawless town now. Like, I don't think people
like the
understood
Purge type shit.
Yes, bro. It became like the fucking Purge, and I have not been that fucking afraid in a long time because I heard somebody screaming bloody murder, like, for their motherfucking life in the middle of the night, like during the curfew night, right? And like, I tried to call 911, nigga. That shit just kept ringing. Nobody picked up the phone. Like, that was.
And you know what's crazy too? The whole point of having a government is to protect from people from physical threats. Like, physical threats of violence is why the government was even established in the first place. And it's like, now...
At least that's what they told us it was established for.
Right. And I mean, they just really... Yeah, there's a whole... Man, there's so many rabbit holes. But yeah, I feel like with that, it's like they're not even doing their job at that point. So why even have a government? And we were talking about this too, like, where did taxes go? To the roads?
You know, the taxes that go to the roads is the poor tax. That's the ones that they use for the roads.
Yeah, people. Yeah,
the lotteries.
Lottery. I literally was about to say that.
No, that's what they. That's what most of the. Bro, it's. You know, other countries laugh about our tax situation. Yeah, people in other countries laugh about us and our income tax situation. Most countries don't have income tax. That is not a thing.
Yeah.
In the majority of countries, that ain't a thing. There's even a couple states. Washington State don't got income tax.
Yeah, no, income tax is dumb to me, and definitely it makes up less than 1% of all the tax revenue from the government.
It does
too. Yeah, no, it doesn't make up anything. Yeah.
So what's the majority of it?
Like capital gains, and then you got like even businesses and stuff. Like, but I mean, even businesses though, like they're ducking taxes. Like Amazon got like I think it was like a $500 million tax refund from the government for providing jobs and everything that
it's
they're
just
doing.
a scam, though.
Yeah.
It's just a scam. I work for a company that got money like that. It's a scam, and they got money for creating jobs, and technically creating a job was firing somebody and putting somebody in the same position. And if they did that,
hold on, talk about that because you got this is because
that's another part of the water crisis.
Was this in Flint? Yep. So, man, that shit was crazy, bro. Like, so basically the way they were manipulating the program. So you can explain it better than I can.
Yeah. So there was this white dude who wasn't even like that successful of a business owner, right? He just like the majority of when I ended up finding out the majority of his businesses failed, and somehow he still got himself in a position where he owned a percentage of a manufacturing company in China, but it wasn't even a big percentage. And he decided he wanted to dissolve his shares one day in the company, or his like ownership of the share of the company, and decided to work out a deal where they gave him a portion of the contract that they had to make car parts for Tesla. So this dude with this small portion of a contract to produce, there wasn't even that many fucking pieces. And then when I tell you this motherfucker actually ended up outsourcing the work for the contract to somebody else while he was getting paid for the government to create jobs in Flint to make the pieces. And so,
damn.
So like before this shit though, there's all this money in Flint and to create jobs because of the water crisis.
The water crisis, right?
And so this motherfucker's like, oh, I have this contract with Tesla to make car parts. I need I could start a factory up in Flint.
Right. And you were and he didn't know nobody in Flint.
No. And he was white.
Right.
And I'm not.
Right.
And obviously.
Right.
And so I brought like validity to what he was doing, bro. And shit.
That's just crazy. So they would hire people and then fire them just to get money from the government, basically. Yeah. So, and then I found them another fucking thing where there was like I can't remember what the fuck it's called in Michigan, but it's not Job Corps, but it's like Michigan had this like program for job readiness. So like if you were on cash assistance, you had to like go to the state sanctioned program that would like do resume classes and teach you how to take an interview and prepare you to have a job and get off of cash assistance. Yeah. And they had a bunch of incentives for businesses to hire people and pay people. So they basically, I helped them find out that if they paid people $20 an hour, that company would actually subsidize all of those employees getting paid $25 an hour for, I think, 6 months. So they were basically hiring people for 6 months. And then their contract with the government, with this, like the grant that they got for the water crisis required them to create, I think it was like 30 jobs a year. And they got like, I can't remember how much money it was, but they got a bunch of money up front. And if they created 30 jobs a year, they didn't have to pay it back. But if they didn't create the jobs, then they'd have to pay the money back. Yep. But then they found a loophole to where they didn't have to actually create new jobs. They could just fire somebody and then rehire somebody in that position, and that counted as a new job. So they hired 10 of my friends, paid them all $20 an hour for 6 months. Once they stopped getting that money from the state to pay them $20 an hour, they fired them, hired a new group of people, which they were able then to not only re-up with the state to get more money through the job readiness program. So they were like triple dipping. And I mean, and dudes were doing crazy shit. Like they had me taking inventory where they had to prove how they spent the money to the state too and shit to not have to pay it back. These motherfuckers were buying their own things. So like the company bought the owner's personal boat. It bought his, like he had a big backhoe. He had an unsuccessful bar, and we bought all of the flat screen TVs from the bar for some reason. And like, I know this because I was the motherfucker that had to go and catalog all the things that they had bought for themselves and put it into a spreadsheet to give to the fucking government. I didn't know at the time that they were things that they had previously owned. I didn't find that out until after the fact. Wow.
So yeah,
that's janky as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's literally just a loophole. Like you're buying your own product so you can use the money freely. Like that's, yeah.
Because if they didn't spend the money, they also had to give it back type shit, right? So They were just finding ways to spend the money instead of giving it to fucking the people that they were supposed to be.
And they spent it on themselves.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That's capitalism. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how it works.
And they never ended up creating a single fucking car piece. Like not one piece was ever made. And they received like millions of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, and then not to mention all the fucking weird like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills type shit that was going on.
What you mean?
With just everybody cheating on their wife and fucking each other, and it's just like in the really most awkward ways and shit.
That ooh.
And then like
you want to talk about that? Like that's because that's real though too. Like I feel like the morality of those situations, like how was being in that environment and kind of seeing all these morally
corrupt people that are successful, it was a mind fuck because like I thought that that's what it took to be successful, and I'm realizing that like in capitalism that's what it does take, and other reason why I don't want to participate because like, bruh, being around people who just have to lie to get by all the fucking time is weird, especially when like the people that like care about you too, but will still lie to you, but are like looking out for you as they're like lying to you and like will be like, so like the main woman who I met through all this, who was like a fucking pathological liar in a lot of the fucking ways, you know what I mean? But like she's the same chick that like when my cat got shot and like I took it to the vet and I didn't have the money to pay for it, and the vet was like bro, my cat got shot and it was about to die. And as I was like filling out the information, the bitch in the front asked me if I wanted to get my cat immunized. My cat's literally dying from a gunshot wound, and she was trying to sell me an immunization at the front desk as I'm filling out the information. You know, I told her what happened, and she like called up the fucking veterinarian spot, bitched them the fuck out, and then paid the bill for me. You know, like
that's real, but she's fake at the same time.
But like, yeah, and it was hard. Like, I have a lot of mixed feelings about how that situation went, and I appreciate because she gave me so much opportunity, and she really did look the fuck out for me. And I just think at the end of the day, like, I would honestly have to say it's probably less have to do with them in the way that they are, and like the fact that at that time, especially, I didn't have a strong enough sense of identity to like be myself while they were all being shitty. So I became like a chameleon and just started acting like them because I didn't have a strong enough sense of self at the time. And so like it's hard to even say that's all on them. That's also like if I would have been in that situation now, I would have like been able to navigate it a lot better.
That's deep.
But you know, like dealing, like I was telling you a story where homegirl, I'm at the fucking like business party and shit, and I know the girl that I know is cheating with one of the main dudes in the company, to the point when I meet his wife for the first time.
Bro, the cologne or the
the perfume, bro. Could you imagine being somewhere, right, and your boss's wife comes up to you and she's like, "Oh, you're so and so's friend. Yeah, my husband talks about her all the time. Oh, you probably noticed I smell like her. Yeah, it's because my husband got me the same. My husband used to come home smelling like her, and I love the perfume so much. I asked him to get me some. And I'm understanding like, you didn't stop and think to yourself, why he smells so much like another bitch. But I guess it was the type of situation where he couldn't leave her because he tried to leave her once and she tried to kill herself type shit. And they got all this money and the embarrassment, and the daughter is just like, and then going from that situation and watching her finesse a fucking billionaire. Did that tell you about how she got the nigga high?
She got him high?
Bro, the way that she would get these old men and get their money, bro. So there was she was a weed dealer, right?
Right.
But like a weed dealer to like old men and like second string quarterbacks from the Detroit Lions. Right? Like
this wasn't the businessman's wife. This
is just a gold digger, like a professional gold digger. And I mean that with the most respect. Like,
nah, valid though. Like
she knew what she could get out of life.
Yeah,
she knew what she got. She knew her strong points, her strong suits, and that was getting the nigga wrapped up.
Right.
And she did that thing. And the reason why I say with all due respect, and I respect, is because she was one of those chicks that would like hustle old white men, and then like after they came in 2 seconds and went to sleep, she would sneak out the crib and go pick somebody up like me from the hood and trick on us. Like she would take the money. She was like Robin Hood, bro. She would take the money from the rich white man
from the rich to the poor.
Yeah, bring it to the niggas in the hood. Get us high as fuck. Take us out to some good dinners and shit. Yeah. Let her drive her Benz.
Nah, you were saying she would get the billionaires high though?
Okay, so bro, she ended up one day, bro. The first crazy thing I ever had this bitch do that I saw was that her plastic surgeon came through the crib and gave her a $20,000 check for me to build a grow room in her garage. I mean, I watched it happen. Nigga, like the nigga that gave her Botox injections like every month, like
gave her 20
bands in a personal check, dog.
Like for what? Like
to build a grow room in her garage. And then she went to the bank and cashed that shit out and gave me all of the money cash, right? So that was like the first finesse I seen. And then the second, as I'm building the grow room, right? One day I'm there building the shit. She calls me in like, Carlton, I want you to meet this guy. This motherfucker is the owner of like the largest steel company in America. This nigga rolls up to the crib in like $150,000 Corvette. It was like that C8. It was some crazy shit, right? Yeah. And he came like under the pretense to buy weed. Like, and his whole shit was like, I haven't smoked weed since the 70s. It's been a long time. Woo, woo, woo. Are you gonna are you sure I'm gonna be okay? And like, I tell you, she gave this old ass man a dab for his first time. For his first time smoking weed in the 70s. This nigga started telling us his whole life story, bro. Wow. Like and that's when I realized the game. she would get them high and it put them into this like infantile like state. And so then she's sitting there on the couch, just holding the nigga, rocking him, holding his head. He's like, I don't know how I'm gonna drive home today. What if my wife catches me here? And she's just sitting there like, shh, don't worry, I got you. I'm gonna make sure you're safe. I'm gonna keep you fed. Are you hungry? You want something to drink? Boo whoop. And so these niggas is going through like they think they're about to die, right? Because they've never been this high before in their life. And she's sitting there just like holding them. And then when they finally come to, she's sitting there just kind of like, I told you I got you. And they're like, they look at her like their fucking savior shit. Like, you just, oh my God. And then also like the euphoria from getting high too. Like, and I remember, I'll never forget this nigga. He's sitting there. This is a billionaire. He had so much. I could have blackmailed the fuck out of this motherfucker, bro, if I wanted to. Like, and he recognized it. Like, I remember he was talking, and he stopped. He's like, wait a minute. I don't even know y'all. Why am I telling you all of this? And like he's telling us about his situation with his wife, how much money he got, where it's at. Like, and he's just telling us his whole fucking life. And bro, I think that nigga ended up buying her a G-Wagon, paid off her crib. She got new lips, new ass, new tits. Bro, she tricked this bro. This nigga fucked Viagra. You know, this nigga was so rich, nigga. He used to have a doctor come to the crib before he fucked and shoot his dick up with a fucking syringe.
Oh hell no!
But that's how rich a nigga is, right? He don't have to take a pill. He had a doctor come to the house before he's gonna fuck and administer a shot right into his dick, and this shit stays hard. Like, imagine, nigga, talk about foreplay, right? Like, hold on, baby. Hold on, let me call the doctor. You ready? You ready for this? The doctor's gonna be here in 20 minutes. Give me about 30 and I got you. Like,
literally, no, that's a whole different, like.
Niggas live in a different world, bro.
Yeah. Wow.
Motherfuckers live in a different world. Like, motherfuckers, like, first dates on boats and shit. Like,
yeah, money to burn type shit. Wow.
Yeah, this crazy ass situations, man.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. Like, to be around those type of people too, like, I feel like that can be draining. Like, just even because you said you were acting as a chameleon. Like, I haven't had some crazy shit like that, but like I've been around people who are just fake, and like having to be around them, I feel like it drains energy from me, and kind of not even having to be around them, but having to engage with them, like interact with them, and kind of it like. I think about things like this. Like, this is why I'm really conscious about who I surround myself with, because like the things you talk about are the things you're thinking about. And in order to even understand someone, you have to understand their thoughts and therefore what they're saying. So it's like, but to bring yourself to some of these people's like thought level, that shit's draining. Mm-hmm. Like, man, it's just like, this is really how you think. Like, you, and this is the things you're thinking about and saying. Like, man, it's just, it can be too much. Like, it's just way too much. So, but yeah, I'm hyper sensitive to that shit.
Yeah. If I just remember the fucking funny ass story from this shit, right? So the chick I was talking about, I ain't never hit or nothing like that, right? And I swear to God, bro, like I haven't thought about this in a while, but my life, like when I was dealing with her, like there was a point in time where my life took a split, right? And I remember it was like a Friday night. Me and her had been flirting a lot, and I finally remember that like there was one day she like called me up out the blue, and she was just kind of like, "Oh my God, Carlton, I'm hanging out," and I can't remember this. This nigga had the worst rapper name I ever heard in my life. It was something like the Demolition Man or some shit. And this bitch had the nerve to call me talking about, "Oh my God, I'm just hanging out with this guy, the Demolition Man. His music is just," she's like talking him up, like bragging about this nigga to me, and I'm like, and I don't know why, but in that moment for some reason I was like, that's my bitch, what the fuck? Like, and it wasn't though, right? But I had this like weird like, and so I was like, where you at right now? I'm about to pull up on you. I found out where she was at, and she was with him, right? Yeah. I pulled up on him, bro. I swear to God, this was like the most Rico Suave shit I ever did in my life. I pulled up, I hopped out the car. He's like kind of over here. She's like in her car, and her son's there, and I heard a story about her son. Oh my God, that shit just reminded me. Anyway, we're gonna loop back. Yeah.
So he's over there. She's right there.
And so like, I get out the car. I look at the nigga, like make brief eye contact with him. Like, don't even nod my head, nothing like that. Like, just I barely acknowledge the nigga. Then look straight at her, walk straight up to her, and that was the first time we kissed. Cause nigga, I just grabbed him, just like, just made it mine in that moment. And then I stayed for a little bit. I chatted, and I was like, so what you doing later tonight? Like, what time you gonna be home? Ooh, she's like, oh, I'll probably be back like around 8, 9. Ooh. I was like, all right, I'm gonna come through tonight. We're gonna hang out. Ooh, now we ain't never like. And she's like, oh,
Yeah.
bro. But then that same fucking night, this girl who I've been trying to see for like a year called me up out of nowhere and was like, "You should come see me." And I went to go see the other girl instead, bro. And my life would probably be drastically different had I not did that.
Damn. The universe. I mean, damn.
Because that girl who I ended up going to see, like, was part of the reason why I ended up losing my job and losing all that shit. And like, whereas conversely, if I was to stay with her, she would only help me get more jobs. Like,
There was only onward and upward and
with her. But to what extent? To what?
And
to what end?
And and then it's like you're kind of trapped in that environment too, and you would have been just maybe better off financially,
but worse off in other ways.
Yeah. So, man, that's crazy. That's good. But what about her son?
I feel bad for this little kid, dog. This motherfucker, bro.
He's just like fucked up or something.
Yeah, he's just fucked in the head, right? And like the one example that I think of, bro, that I'll never forget is that we're sitting together, like me, her, and her son, right? And we're interacting with each other, but he's got like his iPad, and this motherfucker starts doing the like voice to chat shit. But he literally, he typed some shit out and then looks at me and smirks, and I watch this little nigga press the button, and this shit goes, "My mom likes big cock." And there's like no music playing. We're like in her living room, and he just presses and says that shit loud as fuck. And then like I like look at her like,
"What's up?
What the fuck?" And she don't even like look up, right? She pretends like shit ain't even happening. So he presses it again.
Badass look.
Bro, he pressed that motherfucking button like, "My mom likes big dick. My mom likes big dick." And then he changed it to, "My mom likes donkey dick. My mom likes donkey dick." And then she finally has to like look up and acknowledge what's happening. And she's just like mortified. And I'm sitting there looking at her like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this nigga was like 6 years old, bro. Like,
bro, yeah. Nah, that's funny as fuck. That could be
because it's like the three of us sitting there, he just keeps pressing the button and it's saying this vulgar ass shit.
Yeah, and I mean that could be a lot of things. You know, he probably like a little detention deprived or something. But
yeah, because his mom's out here sucking donkey dicks off. But bro, that shit is. But that's the thing too. Like that money and that wealth shit. It's like a weird fucking cult of like incest because, who gives a fuck? Her sister is like married to Steven Spielberg's like nephew.
Wow.
And but it's so crazy that like she was dating the nigga for so long and didn't tell her sister because she knew her sister was a gold digger and was worth like it would fuck it up.
But she would go fuck him. Wow.
And so I remember like when I met her, she had just found out the nigga was Steven Spielberg's nephew, and like it's like, but you're in like it's no coincidence that she's running around with the owner of a fucking the largest steel company in America. Her sister's running around with Steven Spielberg's nephew.
Yeah, like pretending like that shit's not intentional.
It is very much intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, man, that's funny as fuck, bro. Like, no,
he needs a lot of therapy, obviously.
Yeah, and to even grow up like that, like, man, you just at 6 years old, 6, 7 years old, some shit.
Bro, the worst thing that a mother could do to her son is let the nigga see her with multiple men like that. Like I have a friend whose mom was like that through his childhood. Like would leave the nigga in front of the TV while she went to the club type shit, and then like bring a nigga back, hopefully while he was asleep, but he wouldn't be most of the time type shit. And like the damage that did to him.
That probably goes deep.
Yeah,
there's probably so many.
Bro, and then his mom would flirt with me from time to time in front of him. Like, bro, I remember one time I had some CBD shit, right? Like, I had my CBD shit, and I was like, "Oh, you should try this." She had like arthritis in the hands, and I was like, "Here, just take some." And I was like, "Here, let me put some in your mouth." Like a dropper, and of course she made that shit sexual. Or nigga, her son sitting right there. She's like, "Oh, so you want to put it in my mouth, huh?" And he's just staring at me like,
I would lose faith in women at that point. Like if that was my mother, like I would lose a lot of faith in women.
Bruh, you want to hear some shit? about losing faith, nigga. Part of the reason why my trust issues definitely come from like the women in my family, like my grandmother, and the crazy shit I know that she was doing.
Bro, tell me about your grandmother, because this is the same grandmother who, she had tobacco farms.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
So she's from Puerto Rico, and she came to America, married a black dude, and
Got disowned.
Yeah, to some extent. I don't know how serious the disownment was, but I know she never went back to Puerto Rico to live there.
That's crazy.
And but like I guess. So when I was born, my grandmother was already remarried to a nigga, not my grandfather. His name was Sefrino. He was a Puerto Rican dude. It was funny. I was like 13 or 14. And my dad was living with them at the time, right? And I was visiting my dad at their house. And her husband Sefrino was getting Alzheimer's, so the nigga couldn't like drive himself anymore. He couldn't do anything really. Yeah, he couldn't pay his bills anymore by himself. So my grandmother started like assuming a lot of responsibility for his life. Nigga, this was back in the day when you had to pay for minutes on the cell phone.
Yeah.
So with every bill, it gave you an itemized call list of who you called, like the number you called, how long you were on the phone call, and every single bill same standard like that.
Yeah.
So when she started dealing with this nigga's bill, I guess she found the old number from some old shorty that he used to cheat on her with. Right? And so my dad is telling me about how, like, I can't remember how the fuck it came up, bro, but like my dad ended up telling me that, like, the first time, her new husband's name was Sefrino. The first time that my dad met Sefrino was like at his 7th birthday party, and my grandmother introduced Sefrino to him as his uncle from Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Fast forward like 10 years later, she's marrying that nigga. They were never related. My grandma was just cheating on my grandfather the whole time.
That's a mind fuck.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, so my dad's living with them, and then come to find out he's cheating on my grandmother with this other bitch, right? And then my dad's telling me that this nigga is fucking this other bitch in the ass, and he's uncircumcised and not clean, and he's too Alzheimer's out to clean his dick out, and then coming home and giving my grandmother like a UTI. Well, I'm talking about this nigga so Alzheimer's out. We're at his family dinner one time, and this nigga straight up out of nowhere, like it's dead silent, ain't nobody saying nothing. This nigga just ups and goes, you know, somebody really needs to teach your grandmother how to suck dick. My grandma just starts bawling, nigga. Fuck. Like, and then he's looking at it, and everybody's like, "What the fuck?" And he's looking around like, "What? What did I say? What? This just because he
Alzheimer's, yeah, no,
he's fucked up."
Remember, yeah, wow.
But wait, I wish that was the end of it, right? Nigga, tell me why my dad proceeds to tell me that he overhears the fight between her and him about the cell phone and the new bitch or whatever, and eventually he can't drive anymore. So my dad starts chaperoning his stepfather to go cheat on his mother.
Oh.
Like, nigga, he's literally driving him to the bitch's crib, dropping him off at the bitch's crib, coming back and picking him up and bringing him home, and the whole time helping him lie to my grandmother, pretend like they're out golfing or some shit.
Damn.
And I feel like my dad did that shit to spite my grandmother for cheating on his father. To get back. And then this nigga tells me this shit, and I'm like 13 years old.
Damn.
Nigga, the second that me and Sefrino were left alone, nigga, I just said his bitch's name out loud. This one time, I can't remember what her name. Her name was, let's say her name was Susie, nigga. We was just sitting next to each other, and I was just like, Susie? and I just looked away. And just looked away, like I didn't say nothing. And he looks, what did you just say? Nothing.
Got him.
Nothing. Nah. What was that name you just said? Whose name? Nah, I know what you just said. Say it again. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. You feeling all right today? You feeling a little more Alzheimer's than usual? He calls my dad down. Nigga, what the fuck? How does he know? Ooh. And my dad's like, what you said? I was like, nothing. This nigga's crazy, Dad. You already know, remember? He can't remember shit. I ain't say nothing. Because I was pissed and I had to do something. That was the only thing I could do about it. I was just like, I'm gonna fuck with you.
Yeah.
No. And so every once in a while, I would just say the bitch's name. But only when it was me and him, right? So then whenever he tried, because he couldn't say something to my grandmother, well, he's gonna go to my grandmother's and be like, this nigga keeps saying her name. Well, how does he know her name? So he used to keep going to my dad, and my dad would be like, you gotta stop. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking. I never did nothing. He's crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I know my dad had to know I was fucking with him though. Like, but trust issues, bro. Like that shit took me a while, bro. Like, and that's the reason why I'm like poly though, Because I'm not gonna give a bitch a chance to cheat on me. You just do what you want. Like I don't care.
Facts.
Like just I'm not gonna set up a situation that's gonna put you in a position where you gotta cheat on me.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to do something different. So
yeah, I think it's important to let people do what they want to do. You know, be yourself. If you want to.
Unconditional love, man.
Yeah. You got any last words that you'd like to bestow upon the internet?
Don't need to ask if she got IBS.
Boom. And with that,
that's just contagious.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the How to Be Rich podcast. Rich in health, wealth, and everything else dealing with the South. Thanks, Carlton. Come on. Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, this is lit.
We'll do it again, though, for sure.
Oh, definitely. And we'll see y'all again probably next week. Peace.
Fuck yeah.